Hello all. In my second session, we are going to understand about artifacts of SDLC. In my previous video, we have already read about what are the different phases of SDLC. There are different phases. There are certain phases of SDLC that I have already covered in my first video that you can go and watch. Okay. In second video, we are going to study about artifacts of SDLC. Before we get into our different artifacts, we have to understand what does artifact mean. What is artifact? Artifacts. Artifacts. Artifacts are basically tangible document. Tangible documents. It is also called byproduct. So these all are also the byproducts and tangible documents that we get after every steps of SDLC. So every steps from starting from the requirement analysis to implementation, every steps produces certain documents, and those documents are called as artifacts. You have to understand the importance of these artifacts also. Every artifact which is generated has its own importance into the organization. These artifacts are used for validating and communication. So these artifacts generally are used in organization for doing further communication related to project, and then it's also used by every stakeholders for validating what was to be developed and what is developed. So actual and expected both are matched with the your artifacts. So communication is something about that you have to communicate with the artifacts that you have generated from every steps of SDLC. So this is very important to learn these artifacts, and these artifacts in your interview questions you will also be asked different artifacts of SDLC. So you must know at what stage what is the artifact that is generated. Coming to different artifacts at different stages. The first is in the project planning. When we are planning a project, there is one artifact, that is project charter. So when we are planning a project, we have a project charter. Project charter is all about having the problem statement. What is the requirement for which you are going to develop a solution? So that problem statement should be clearly mentioned into the project charter, as well as who is the person, who is the organization who is going to sponsor this project. So that is the part of project charter document. That is one artifact. Second, if we talk about requirement analysis, in requirement analysis there is a artifact that we call it as a SRS, that is system requirement a specification. So one document is generated after BAs or project product owners collects the requirements and they map into a document, and that document is called as system requirement specification. This system requirement specification has different names into different organization, different people call it differently. So same document can be called as BRS, BRS and BRD, BRS and BRD. This is business requirement document and business requirement specification. Then it is called as BDD, BD business detailed document. Then it can also be called as DDD, detailed design document. Then it is also called as user requirement specification. Then it is also called as functional specification, functional specification. This can also be called as technical specification, technical specification. This can also be called as user requirement document, URD. So if you see, they are referring to a same document SRS, but they are calling with the different names. So you should never get confused with these names, because different people will call it differently into different organization, but they are calling or they are referring to the same document. That is the byproduct of requirement analysis phase. Coming to next is design, 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 design. In design phase, we will have two things, that is high level design and we will have low level design. So we will also have high level document and we will have a low level document. The output of high level document becomes the input for the low level documents. So once the high level document is created, the same document is used by LLD, the person who is working on low level requirement, low level designs to implement the solution. So in high level design document, we generally mention the architecture of the application. This is generally for the showcasing to the non-technical people, into the organization, to the customers. So to the customers we have to present that what we are going to develop, how will it look like, what are the different modules, how they are going to interact. So these all things we will put into high level design. In low level design, we will see how these different modules is tightly integrated, how they are communicating, then designing about the databases and all. So those things we cover inside the low level design document. Then this is in high level design documents, that is also a micro, it is called as a micro documents, and this is that is called as macro document, and it is also called as micro document, micro, 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 and this is macro. Now coming to coding. So in coding we have a certain set of artifacts, that is first one is your unit cases, unit test cases and source code. So when developer is working on the coding part, they will produce certain set of code, they will write a script. So that is a source code they are going to generate, and once they have a source code generated, they have to do a testing, first round of testing, component testing, module testing. For that testing they have to write a unit test cases, they have to write, and that becomes one of the byproduct artifact of coding part. Coding then is testing, 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 testing. In testing, if we see, we have different artifacts, that is test plan, test plan, test plan, test plan. Then we have test cases, test cases, test cases. Then here we have test report, defect defect report. Defect report. So in testing, once the tester has started working onto the coding which is already done by the developers, they will have to have first they have to create a test plan. They have to create a test plan, and this test plan is generally created by the test managers or test leads. This document is basically created by test managers or test leads, and then once the test plan is in place, that is, then we have to create a test cases with the certain functionality that exists. So to create those test cases, we will use this BRS document, SRS document. This will be our benchmark from where we will start writing, drafting, authoring the test cases. Once the test cases is created, we will test the application based on those test cases, and then we will also have defect. We will also have a defect. If there is a defect, then we will create a defect report. So these are the three different artifacts. So these all are the three different artifacts of testing phase. Then we have implementation. Now once implementation. So implementation and post implementation, if you see, so in implementation, once the product is developed, what we need to do is we need to deploy that product over production. We have to give that developed product to the customer. So if we see about implementation, in implementation there are certain artifacts, that is, one is user manual and release notes. So in user manual, we will have all the set of functionalities with a screenshot will be there, that what are the features we have developed and how it can be used, how it can be navigated from one screen to another. That will be part of the user manual with the, that is a help guide. This is also called a help guide. So this will be provided to customers. In release notes, we have to give what are all the things that we have covered with this release, and what are the features that we have taken up into this release, and if there was something to be taken but we have not taken for some reason, then that we have to highlight that this functionality or this feature is not part of this release. If there is any known issue, if there is any known defects which is opened, then you have to highlight it into the release notes, so that the customers don't come back asking that there is a defect which exists into the production. Because if they come, you might go and show them the release notes that this is a known issue, known defect. So that is the reason we have all these artifacts, because once there something goes wrong, that has to be validated with the artifacts only that you have created during different stages. In next video, we will try to cover different topic. Till then, thank you.